Okay. Um, so our first presenter in the Flash Talk section. Okay, this talk is from Álvaro Russo, BA graduate from the University of the Republic, Uruguay, and the title is Perceptions of Emotions in Dogs Through the Movement of the LAOM Facial Muscle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is my thesis for a bachelor degree in biological sciences. And this research analyzed people perception of emotional expressions in dogs through facial expressions, particularly the contraction, which allows the eyebrows to be raised and the sclera to be visible. This rising of the eyebrows results in a larger apparent eye size, a neotenic trait that may enhance care and diminish aggression. This muscle is not present, present in wolves, the dog's closest living relative, and therefore it has been postulated that it might have developed during the domestication process. In humans, eyebrow raising expresses sadness, so it has been postulated that dogs that raise their eyebrows may be perceived as sad by people, and this might have given dogs an evolutionary advantage. This study sought to determine what emotions people perceive when observing a dog raising their eyebrows and exposing their sclera. To do this, we modified one dog's picture to show both stimuli and two other photographs showing each stimulus separately. Through an online form, the modified photos were shown and people were asked what emotions they perceived and what element provided in a list from which to choose, they based their decision. In the photo with the two stimuli together, the significantly most frequently chosen option was sadness. However, there was a higher response of sadness in people who observed both stimuli together in addition to other elements. Regarding the stimuli separately, raised eyebrows led to a significantly higher perception of sadness than other emotions, but always observed in conjunction with other elements. Most of those who perceived sadness did not rely on their raised eyebrow. In the stimulus was solely the sclera, the most frequently chosen option referred to dogs' attentional states, although among the emotions, sadness was the most frequently chosen. For this emotion, most did not rely solely on observing the sclera, but rather observed it alongside other elements. In each of the stimuli analyzed, the other elements observed were primarily the ears and the head position. Apparently, the sclera allows for identifying gaze orientation. In our study, neither raised eyebrows nor the sclera, viewed together or separately, were key elements for perceiving emotions. However, the more elements considered, the better the perception of an emotion and its balance, particularly for sadness and fear. The ears were one of the most relevant elements. This is considerable. There is a phenotypic variation in dogs' ear shape and size, as well as mutilations, which may make correct identification of signals difficult. And that is why it's important to educate people to identify early signs of discomfort and warning signs to be able to interpret them correctly and thus avoid bites, which often results in negative consequences for dogs. And this can improve the safety of people and the well-being of dogs, and thus enhance the bond between species. In visual communication, perhaps because it is one of the primary senses in humans, is important in establishing a bond. It would have played an important role in early stages of dog domestication, facilitating empathy and cooperation. I, I want to thanks to my tutors, the ethologist Silvia Corte and Verónica Ventura, and Dr. Sabrina Clavijo. We belong to the Faculty of Science of University of the Republic in Uruguay, and as you can see, now we are the only conference, so it's a honor for me and hope to be more in the next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next talk is from Peggy Moran, master student from the University of Exeter, and it's A Tale of Two Bridges, Ethical Witnessing, Power and the Struggle for Balance in a Shared Ecosystem.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peggy Moran, and today I'm honored to be presenting A Tale of Two Bridges, Ethical Witnessing, Power, and the Struggle for Balance in a Shared Ecosystem. Thank you for being here. The property where I live is private and untamed, a large area of riparian growth, sustained by the creek that winds through it like an artery, supporting an array of lives in a delicate balance of coexistence. Amid this vibrant life, a hunter hides silently, ready to shoot. The hunter is me. My weapon is a camera, and I shoot photos to capture but not kill. Camouflage conceals me, but cannot erase the power dynamics my observation introduces. This project examines the ethical dilemmas of witnessing within shared ecosystems. The Coyote Bridge, a fallen tree, acts as a lifeline. It is a place of survival and movement where natural and human-imposed challenges intersect. As Latour argues, categorizations like these reflect human attempts to impose order on the natural world. One morning, while hidden with my camera, I observed a family of 5 coyotes, 2 adults and 3 juvenile pups, crossing the bridge together. Shortly afterward, the commons to the south erupted with gunfire. When the coyotes reappeared several weeks later, only the father and 1 young female remained. The daughter now led, the father limping behind her. These images reveal embodied resilience, both inspiring and heartbreaking. Yet, as Wolf reminds us, narratives of resilience often reflect human projections. The following summer, the young female coyote returned alone. I observed her crossing the bridge just as a young raccoon climbed the supporting tree. Both froze momentarily, camouflaged by leaves. Capturing this encounter made me reflect on whether I could frame such interactions without oversimplifying their complexity. The human bridge, a deteriorating structure, functions both as literal crossing and as a conceptual vantage point. Perched under camouflage nearby, I navigated the complexities of observation and participation. A. Campora critiques seeing without being seen as an inherently asymmetrical relationship. My camouflage reinforced my separation as an observer, privileged, veiled, and distanced, even while attempting to minimize my presence. My attempt to remain unseen failed one morning when a heron speared a fish while I was watching. I shook free of my camouflage and startled the heron, causing it to drop the still alive but mortally wounded fish, which drifted away downstream. Plumwood critiques this kind of intervention as arrogant perception, where human acts of care displace non-human agency. The event forced me to confront the ethical weight that is present even in unintentional actions. I wonder about other acts of predation that occur in this space. In Illinois, where I live, deer occupy a unique position managed through regulated hunting, with human interests shaping the value assigned to them. NACE's deep ecology calls for recognizing the intrinsic value of all beings, irrespective of their utility to humans. While photographing a beaver, I captured a moment where he looked directly at me. Feldman and Lobb suggest that witnessing creates a relational space. The beaver's gaze was a reminder that witnessing without consent is never passive. The creek, with its two bridges and the life it sustains, embodies a third space, a space where hierarchical narratives are challenged. This liminal zone resists rigid categorization, exposing the insufficiency of human frameworks to fully account for the lives that share this space with us. The creek demands an ethic of humility and care. Witnessing is not merely preservation, it is participation, connection, and the acceptance of shared responsibility. Photography can become a way of engaging within this third space, but it also risks reinforcing the observer's power. The two bridges remind me that my presence matters, even when concealed, and that ethical witnessing is an ongoing negotiation of responsibility.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. That was very interesting. Right, we're going to move on now to the next talk. Kylie Boyer. Kylie, do you need to share your screen? Okay. Kylie is a master's student from Miami University, and her talk is The Feminine Feline, How Felines Represent Femininity in Folklore. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Once again, my name is Kylie. I am from the Miami University in Ohio in the USA. And my topic is exploring gender in animal storytelling with a focus on felines. So a little bit of background. History and storytelling are a way that humans explain and interact with social concepts, such as gender, and the protection of women's rights can go hand in hand with the protection of the world around us and wildlife. So the gist of this presentation is that gender explains why some animals are protected or destroyed in various cultures. So taking a look at some various masculine stories, or what I defined as masculine is when the animal, in this case a feline, is identified in a masculine way, such as using pronouns or titles that are specific to a gender. What I didn't look into, I will say in this, is the presence of non-binary stories or differing gender stories. So just keep that in mind, that that is not part of this. But for example, the tiger is called Inyak with the Minang people, which means grandfather. So in this case, the grandfather or the tiger is the protector of this culture, as well as the bringer of punishment. Korean sources, tigers are almost always referred to as male. And in other cultures, the cougar is referred to as father or great uncle. The two tribes that I have mentioned here are Native American tribes. Also in European and Christian context, if you think about Narnia, for example, God is depicted as a godly lion with that identifying halo, implying the male lion. So in all of these stories, the masculine cat, in this case, is acting as either a protector, a punisher, a great elder of the family. More feminine stories. There's the story of the Paltavaga, which is the transformation of a person into a tiger in the Adivasi culture in India. And this tiger in particular was a scapegoat for witch hunts of women who were said to be transforming into tigers to kill men. And this led to the hunting and scapegoating of women as witches, as well as tigers alike. In Ecuador, the Napo Quicha story of the human twins who became jaguars. Those human twins are identified as male, but in this story in particular, we have the grandmother jaguar who takes them in. And this grandmother jaguar also takes in and hides women who are being attacked by other jaguars. So in this case, we have the woman who is protecting from either her own kind or protecting in a motherly sense. In ancient Egypt, a lot of the cats associated deities were female, such as Mafdat the leopard and Akher the lion as well. And so just kind of to wrap all of that up in a really quick way, is that when a minority group is associated with an animal, it can lead to devastating effects on the perceptions of that animal. Hatred of a specific type of person can lead to scapegoating, literal and hypothetical witch hunting, and the villainization of an innocent wild animal. In most of these cases, those tend to be are ones that are seen as women animals. On the other hand, it can lead to the deification of an animal, in which case gender can be a protective element. If you are going to kill a jaguar, or perhaps a woman you suspect of becoming this jaguar, who's to say they aren't under the protection of a wrathful jaguar-headed goddess? So socially, this research impacts the way societies relate to and understand gender. It also does provide historical context for the sociology of gender in different cultures. Not to say one is better than the other or one is more modern than the other, but it does give a historical context of definitions of gender. Ecologically, this also gives us an understanding of how animals are viewed within a culture. And it can be key to why they are revered or why they're hunted to extinction. For example, you have the easily tricked Korean tiger in Korean folklore, and the African lion, which is seen as just a simple hunting and trapping of prey, as a very simple creature, which can lead to their dwindling numbers due to poaching, or this idea that they are simple or easily tricked. We've also got the grandfather tiger of Indonesia and the grandmother jaguar in Ecuador, which are examples of protectors. And those may be particular reasons why a society does not hurt a creature. They make it part of one's family, and arguably they make it the most important member and elder. You wouldn't want to accidentally kill your grandmother, for example. So all of this is a way of just kind of humanizing the way gender is seen, or sorry, animalizing the way gender is seen, but also humanizing the way we see those animals in various cultures as well. So if you have any questions, I do have my email on there as well. But of course, I'll look for them in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, Kylie, thank you very much for that. That's great. And now we move on to our next talk, and that is from Hilary Hirtle. Hilary, do you have some slides to share? Hilary is a master's graduate from the University of Manchester, and her talk is Surveying Marsden Moor. Thanks.
All right, everyone, thank you for joining me for this talk. It is, as it was mentioned, Surveying Marsden Moor. And let's go. So how all this got started was in 2023. I was an MA in visual anthropology student at the University of Manchester's Granada Center. My research interests were on exploring human and more than human relationships. And I used audiovisual methods, so film, photography, and audio to carry out those investigations. And I was also a lover of moors and moorland, and that led me to meet the National Trust at Marsden Moor. So Marsden Moor is a National Trust property located in West Yorkshire, and it is a significant site due to its blanket bog habitat. It has significant plant species. It's a prime habitat for some endangered ground nesting birds. And with all the pollution from the Industrial Revolution and then climate change, as of now, it was hit pretty hard ecologically. So it's undergoing ecological restoration to reduce all the carbon loss and increase the biodiversity of the landscape. So starting my investigation on the moor, when I got there, I did not have a research question, but in general, I was looking at relationships with the land. So I became a volunteer field surveyor, and I brought along my camera and audio recording gear and to kind of see what would happen and what I would find when I got there. So understanding field surveying. So as I became a volunteer, I learned that field surveying includes activities like coring peat, conducting plant and bird counts, and measuring the water depths to restore the moor. And some of these pictures kind of just illustrate the activities that I would join in with the other field surveyors. And I was really looking at that moment of like how they're engaging with the landscape, and I'll get into that in a moment. But as I was going through field surveying, I realized it was the primary way that my fellow volunteers were getting to know and understand the moorland landscape around them. So I began to ask, is it possible that the landscape makes itself known to field surveyors as an agent in the restoration process? So is the land essentially an agent in how it's being restored? So my methods, I use kind of a mixed methods here. I conducted interviews of the field surveyors to understand them more in their work. I walked to get to know them more. That was something the field surveyors recommended. It was just to get to know the landscape more, like a one-on-one relationship. And I used methods in performance photography to investigate exchanges between the land and the surveyor. So I was looking at like moments where they would interact either with some of their data collection tools or, the overall practice that they were doing with the landscape. And then unusually I recorded sounds of the surveying activities because what I realized the Moor really made itself known underground. And so they would use some of these instruments that they relied on sound to like hear water. And then some of the non-human residents were identified through sounds, like some of the birds, because you could hear them, but you couldn't see them. So sound was an interesting way of learning more about the Moor in that moment. And what all this led, whoops, moving too fast. Trying to move this little screen. Sorry, guys. Landscape as a container. And that's what this led me to, is essentially the Moor holds cultural memory and non-human presence, which the surveyors emotionally respond to through field surveying activities. So they're responding to what they're encountering in the Moor. And in essence, this is influencing how the restoration process is undertaken, how it's imagined by the field surveyors. And then field surveying is dialogue. What I came to understand is that field surveying is just more than data collection. It becomes a co-creative exchange between surveyors and the landscape. And then Moor becomes known, but also responds through material, sensory, and historical presence accessed only through the surveying activities. And that I'm reaching the end of my talk here, and that thank you to the National Trust, all my fellow field surveying volunteers. I miss them. The University of Manchester's Granada Center, and my advisor, Dr. Rupert Cox. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. That was great. Now I'm going to pass over to Irene for the next 4 talks. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. What fascinating talks so far. So now we'll start on the final 4 talks of the conference. And Danielle, are you able to share?
Is that working for everyone?
I think it's just about to. Yeah, that's perfect. Let me introduce you, Danielle. So Danielle Home is a master's student at the University of Regina, and her talk today is Mutual Healing with the Modern Human World. All yours, Danielle.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Danielle Home. I am a master's student, as said, in counseling psychology at the University of Regina in Canada. I'm just going to take a few minutes today to speak about mutual healing with the more than human world. So this is an Indigenous concept that includes animals, people, landforms, rocks, weather, elements, directions, and spiritual forms. So the focus today will be mostly on animals. And I won't be going into any detail about this other than to say significant trauma lies in the relationships between people and animals. Humans hold trauma from interactions with animals, as well as grief and disconnect from the lack of natural animal relationships and the loss of traditional relationships. Animals also experience trauma, both from their direct experiences with people and what they carry from past generations. In addition, there's considerable human-animal interactions and research that has operated within systems of oppression. So we have anthropocentrism, speciesism, spiritual views of human domain, and the Western biomedical approaches. Not only is this field built on those systems, but it's also conveniently often positions the human-animal relationship as innately positive and healing when it's a lot more complicated than that. And we're going to keep in mind that as settlers and people who benefit from the legacies of colonialism, part of reconciliation is reconciling with the more than human world, including our animal kin. So animal welfare is really the minimum. To reconcile, we need to ensure that animals are benefiting from human interactions, animal-assisted services, and human-animal research. So all participation, roles, and relationships that we involve them in must contribute to their wellness and improve health and well-being in future animal generations. Research in human-animal interactions has historically been focused on how we can tap into the rewards of being exposed to animals. Recently, more attention has been given to animal welfare and animal perspectives in these environments, which is awesome. However, we've yet to really understand if and how humans and animals can heal their own respective traumas together, and both benefit from relationships and interactions with the other. Thankfully, there are experts to turn to with thousands of years of intergenerational knowledge, wisdom, and relationships with specific animal species and communities. Traditionally, Indigenous people have regarded animals as equal parties, family members. They have evolved together. Strong relationships with the more than human world have been regarded as critical for holistic health and been part of Indigenous healing practices for thousands of years. Each community and geographical area have different historic and current relationships to the more than human world. Therefore, efforts to understand and facilitate these relationships must be specific to each community. Community members must be consulted and involved in all program creation and research design, and you want to seek input and feedback from animal participants whenever possible. As McGinnis and Kincaid write, by facilitating a more than human collective thinking and a way of knowing and being in relation to all else, Indigenous and non-Indigenous educators, mental health service providers, and community advocates can engage in a process of knowledge co-creation and play a key role in promoting Indigenous understandings of environmental sustainability and multi-species wellness for generations to come. Consider your own relationships to the more than human world around you. The plants, pets, wildlife, weather. Do you have anything to heal? Let's look at the example of the Lac-Macroy Indigenous horse, which are gaining popularity in equine therapy programs in Canada and the United States. So there is evidence supported by Indigenous histories that suggests that they actually survived the Ice Age in North America and have thousands of years of history with Indigenous people. So these are unique animals known for being social and tolerant of human behavior, perhaps from their history of living freely and working closely with Indigenous communities. These animals were almost completely eliminated in the 70s until there were only 4 left. But through conservation efforts, their numbers have grown now to about 200. Their story is eerily reminiscent to that of their Ojibwe relatives, surviving decimation at the hands of missionaries, removal from their homeland, denial of existence, and for those that managed to survive, assimilation into modern society. They carry intergenerational trauma and spiritual injury, but have shown incredible strength and resilience. The Indigenous horse-based healing framework from Snowshoe and Star Blanket promotes healing for these horses and Indigenous people. It ensures that research and programs are trauma-informed, strengths-based, spiritually grounded, and community-specific. So this promotes multi-species holistic wellness and is one example of how we can decolonize equine therapy and animal-assisted services, education, and research. As researchers and practitioners, we'd benefit from positioning Indigenous people as the experts in One Health approaches and human-animal relationships. I'm still learning, and I hope you are too. Here are some references to check out. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. That was fascinating. Lots to think about. So our next presenter is Claire Martin, and Claire's master's student at the University of Exeter. Her talk is Equus Rising, and I believe Claire's is recorded, Chris.
Hi everyone, my name is Claire Martin. I'm an anthrozoology master's student at the University of Exeter. And I wanted to speak today a little bit about some of the research I'm doing, which will go towards my dissertation around the ethics of horses in the healing or coaching space or therapy space. I'm a qualified equine facilitated human development coach, and I'm here because I saw many issues with this kind of work when I was practicing. I still am practicing, but I've reframed it completely to the whole thing for me is removing the horse from this performative space where the horse is expected to deliver an experience to the human, and that can go for any other non-human animal in this kind of arena of coaching, well-being, healing, therapy, you name it. So yeah, it's on the surface, it feels and seems like a really great thing. Horses have evolved through time. They've built roads for us. They've taken us to war, all of these things, been sports, tools, and now they're expected to fix us too. And my whole thesis will be about how can we reframe that so that we're partnering with them and giving them complete and utter bodily autonomy to leave the space if they want to say no, basically. So I'm interested in people's thoughts on that, people's experiences, and I'd welcome anyone to connect with me if you have anything to say or would like to know more. So as I say, it's a really great practice on many levels, but you know, the horse is often taken into this space, this arena, and expected to deliver this therapeutic experience for the human, and often doesn't get given any choice in the matter. So how can we change that? Well, if we're keeping horses in the most species appropriate way, that looks like being in a field, being in a large open space where they get to choose whether or not they want to engage. So rather than taking a horse out of the herd and asking him or her to stand by the client and interact, the way I work and what I'll be writing about is how we can get huge amounts just by standing on the side of the field. There's still an impact and there's still pressure there, but much less. You know, can we stand by the side of the fence and literally share space with them? And it's been proven that this is, you know, remarkably impactful. I'm also weaving in ideas around eco-psychology, so very much the environment interacting with the horse and the horse with the environment and the environment with the human, so that can become a powerful exchange as well, instead of, again, having this pressure on a horse to do something for us. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm interested in working out, is how much value is there in that? Will clients still pay for an experience or a service where, you know, they're thinking, well, depends how you frame it, but it needs to be reframed so that horses aren't the center focal point when it comes to this therapeutic exchange. So my question will be all about, you know, what can we as humans really see the value in just standing by the side of a half-ton, beautiful, powerful being with a nervous system that matches ours, and breathe into that space and exchange, you know, feelings and emotions? Can that be enough? My feeling is yes, it is. But the work will be around reframing that so that the wider public that are expecting, you know, people who ride, people who want therapeutic riding experiences or real therapeutic exchanges with another being, can that be enough to simply stand near to, close by these beautiful, large herbivores with the most attuned nervous system ever? Can that be enough? And yes is the answer. And my work will be to really prove that and bring forward some research on how between nature, human, animal, that whole interaction, that whole exchange, that whole being with the land, on the land, part of nature. We are nature. We don't go to nature. We are part of it. And so I'm really interested and excited to explore what that might look like, to reframe the idea of horses or any other non-human animals giving us a healing and therapeutic experience. And I'd love to hear from anyone who's doing something similar or has any insights, studies. I'm quite early on in this journey, so yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and to meet people and to see where this leads. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Claire. Lovely. So next we have Faranak. You're here. That's great. Would you like to share screen?
Yes, thank you. Can you see it now?
That's perfect. Let me introduce you. So next we have Faranak Parkami, who's a PhD candidate at Arizona State University. And she's going to talk to us about framing analysis of digital conservation campaigns on illegal wildlife trade. All yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm talking about framing analysis of digital conservation campaigns on illegal wildlife trade today. So in 2022, 1,600 tons of illegal pangolin scales were burnt in Nigeria, and this is equal to 4 Boeing 747 planes, which you can see the size of these planes in the picture. And so this is a huge scale of illegal wildlife trade that is happening around the world. And illegal wildlife trade is the 4th largest illegal industry. So we need to do something about this. And there are a lot of environmental NGOs that have started raising awareness about this issue using marketing techniques and visual messages such as videos and images. These campaigns have spent $1.3 billion internationally between 2010 and 16. However, we see that the issue still exists. So we need to critically examine these messages, which are well-intended but might have negative outcomes if they are not culturally informed. So illegal wildlife trade is the sale and exchange of wild species conducted by humans on local, national, and international levels. They can be obtained from their natural habitats or bred in captivity, and they can be in different states like dead, alive, or in body parts. So in this research, I'm also looking at the role of tourists because tourists are stakeholders in illegal wildlife trade. We usually view them as saviors of wildlife because tourists go to different protected areas and they spend money there, and that money goes to conservation. However, tourists can knowingly and unknowingly get involved in illegal wildlife trade. So I'm also looking at whether these messages are showing tourists as stakeholders getting engaged in illegal wildlife trade or not. So I'm using a decolonial lens here, and it's because I've seen many of the videos and like the visuals, they have used colonial frames, such as how they frame the global South versus global North. For example, referring to the global South as the other, the primitive local communities versus the Western communities that are more civilized, and then the global South as passive and indolent, and the global North as primary actors of conservation efforts. So in order to be decolonial, we need to find the colonial frames that are used in these messages so that they can be more culturally informed in the future. So this is a qualitative research, and I'm using integrative framing analysis. So this means that I'm not omitting any part of the message. I'm focusing both on the visual and also the verbal component of the message. So far, I have found 40 videos and 10 images that are up to 10 minutes. And my focus is on rhinos, pangolins, tigers, and elephants, which are either highly traded or endangered species. So I'm getting these visuals from the international environmental NGOs, from their websites, YouTube channels, and more. And it's from 2020, the onset of COVID-19, to November 2024. And it's the beginning of COVID because we know that it was a zoonotic disease that resulted in the pandemic. So I thought that might be a good frame of time to see how the messages have changed. So this is all about my research, and thank you so much for listening. I would answer any questions later. Thank you.
That's really fascinating, Faranak. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So finally, we have Chenwei's son, who's a master's student at the University of Hong Kong. And her talk is To Become Non-Human Families, the Impacts of Pets for Urban Young Adults, a mixed research based on Sun's data.
Hello, I'm Sun Chenwei, and you can call me Century if you want. The research I want to share today is to become non-human families, the impacts of pets for urban young adults. Due to the time limit, I will report only main parts of my paper. So the firstly is research questions. Whether and how keeping pets would affect the psychological and life circumstances of young urban adults, and whether and how urban young adults construct the subjectivities of their pets. And during above process and discussions, are there any differences exist between the species of pets? As you can see in the subtitle, I use the mixed methods to do my research. In quantitative part, I used the data from Shanghai Urban Neighborhood Survey, which conducted by my undergraduate school, Shanghai University, and did some linear and logistic regressions, mainly to see the relationship of pets and the people's emotional and psychological circumstances. And in qualitative part, I did some semi-constructed interviews with 8 Gen Z people aged from 19 to 25 from cities in southern part of China. All of them have different pet keeping experiences so that I could figure out the specific interactions between human and their pets in everyday life. The results and conclusions are shown as below, and now let me explain these pictures. The initial constructs of subjectivity of pets are completed by the empathy of pet owners, and these empathies are affected by the agencies of pets, which varies from the different species of pets. As you can see, dogs and cats are more likely to be regarded as family members than other species like fishes and birds, because cats and dogs are larger, strongly interactive, and in need of broader spaces. What's more, the individual intimacy degree and the responsibility of caring also influences the process of construction. Therefore, the such process is conditional. In addition, such empathy process is also exceptional, but in some sense universal. After the first pet or companion animal passed away, those young adults refuse to keep another pet because the former pet is too unique to them. And meanwhile, they may also show more respect and care for other animals generally, but may exhibit a sense of alienation towards other animals because they don't want to experience another grief of death. So, what's more, both quantitative research and qualitative research show that the pet keeping has a positive effect on people's mental health, significantly reducing negative psychological emotions and even alleviating symptoms of mental illnesses such as loneliness and depression. And the data does not indicate significant differences in the effects produced by different species. So in this process, these animals cannot be simply defined as pets in a narrow sense, and it is more appropriate to call them companion animals. In conclusion, my research shows a process to construct the subjectivity of pets through the joint efforts of both animals and pet owners. But it is just the beginning, for the process exposes obvious anthropocentrism. Besides, the research also indicates younger generations' sense of responsibility and respect for non-human species. Last but not least, my research reveals some symbiosis between humans and animals in urban space. That's all. Thank you and for listening, and I'm looking forward to your comments and suggestions.
Thank you, Sun. Sorry, I got your names in reverse, but that was lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all to all of our presenters and all of our attendees. We realized we had a few Zoom challenges to overcome, and you all were so adaptable and flexible. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope that you had as much fun as we did during the conference. I did want to just again thank our sponsors, the Wintergren Foundation and Miami University. And I wanted to mention that we have a lot, as your hosts, of fantastic presentations to review, and we'll be contacting the prize winners over the next few weeks. And then just a reminder to join our AIP Facebook group if you would like. We will also send out details about a WhatsApp group in the next several weeks if you want to stay in contact. And then lastly, don't forget to check out the poster presentations that are on the website. They're quite good, and I think you will enjoy reading them. Beyond that, I just want to say have a wonderful weekend, and thank you all for attending and for your flexibility.